I'm Gomen from the Hong Kong Maritime Museum. I'm the Marine Science Program Coordinator. So different from the previous speaker, I have a more biology background and environmental background and in my past academic experiences. So I'll focus more on how shipping may affect the environment and also the wildlife there. So why we are talking about shipping? Because it's important. And why? It's because shipping is actually responsible for more than 80% of the volume of the international trade, which is a big volume. And a big volume means big impact. And actually, this number is even higher in the developing countries. And it's obviously because it's much cheaper than a flight and other means of transportation. So actually, for the shippings, there are different kinds of environmental impacts. And for example, greenhouse gas emission, air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, etc. So I'll go a bit details for each kind of impact. So first, for the greenhouse gas emission, in short term GHG, it's actually for shipping, it's actually account for around 3% of global carbon dioxide emission. And it seems 3% is not a lot, but however, remember it's about 3% of all human activities on Earth. And if we think about that, it's actually a lot when we think about 3% of everything we're doing. And what will affect so how the greenhouse gas will affect us? One obvious thing is that it will cause global warming. And besides raising the temperature of the whole world, it's also causing more extreme weathers. For example, in Hong Kong, we're experiencing more super typhoons and more heavy rains here. And besides the weather, it's also causing the glacier to retreat and causing a rising sea level. And causing rising sea level not only affects the livelihood of the coastal communities, it also affects how the transport the marine transport on the whole world. And at the end, it also may cause species extinction in the global level. So, and recently, many companies or even government talking about reducing their carbon emission to achieve carbon neutralization. But actually, in around 8 years ago, in 2015, actually around 200 parties already signed the Paris Agreement, and they aim to achieve the net zero of carbon emission by 2030. But are we doing a good job to achieve this goal? So here is the greenhouse gas concentration, actually it's the CO2 concentration from 1959 to 2020. So you can see we signed the Paris Agreement in 2015, but actually the curve is still increasing, and which means we are not doing enough to achieve the carbon neutralization goal right now. So which means we need to work harder on it. And besides the greenhouse gas pollution, the greenhouse gas emission, there's also potential on air pollution if there's no proper regulation on vessel, and it will actually mean affect humans and animals like birds in the Arctic region. And another main issue from the shipping pollution is that the sewage, or most importantly, the oil leakage. And why oil leakage is so deadly or so important is because it's really difficult to clean. It's really sticky and really deadly, and which costs a lot of money and effort to clean it. And once the animal gets polluted by the oil, and it means actually almost death sentence to them, because it's toxic and it's really hard for them to remove by themselves. Even with help from human beings, many of them cannot able to survive for a long period of time. And another problem is underwater noise. Because all kind of shipping activities, like the motor activities or the sonar activities, all these kind of activities may affect the underwater sound. And most research on this topic is on the dolphins and whales. And actually, they have studies showing that the underwater noise may affect their behavior, driving them away their home, causing them cannot communicate to each other because they use hypersonic to communicate underwater, and also affect their behavior of predation and mating and many other behaviors. And actually, an agency, the European Environmental Agency, they have estimated the noise pollution in the EU waters. And they found that before the COVID, during 2014 and to 2019, the pollution actually doubled it. Yeah, so actually, without proper regulation, we are causing more and more pollution to the ocean. And another problem will be the vessel strike. And I think for those who live in Hong Kong, you will remember we have a whale potentially get hit I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and it actually happens all around the world. And obviously, it also happened in the Arctic region. And all the problems I mentioned can happen together in the Arctic and causing a really bad problem, and mainly because of the global warming. As mentioned by previous speaker, the ice is actually shrinking right now. It means we have more potential to utilize the routes in the Arctic. And more shipping means more disturbance and more pollution if we do not have appropriate regulations. And another problem, serious problem, is that the oil spillage. If oil spillage happens in Arctic, it will be very difficult to clean up. Imagine even it happens in the tropical region, it's very difficult for us to clean up. We spend a lot of money and a lot of resources to clean up. But in Arctic, where the climate is not stable, and the ice, the sea ice, the floating ice is not stable, it means really difficult to clean up or even to locate the oil spillage. But luckily, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, have been strengthened the regulation regarding a type of oil called heavy fuel oil, a type of fossil fuel, which has been used over the world. Because like this type of oil is very toxic, so they have to consider to tighten the regulation of usage in the Arctic in 2021. And hopefully, I think they have a plan to ban the use of this toxic fossil fuel in the Arctic by 2050 or around that time. So talking about so many impacts, do we have any solutions? So as I mentioned, there's an organization called IMO, which is under the UN. They have been setting regulation called the MAPO, International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, which is executed since 1973. They have these rules or regulation actually have been managing all kinds of stuff like the greenhouse gas emission, oil spillage, marine pollutant, etc. And they've been consistently updating the rules to meet their target. For example, to reduce, they have set a goal to achieve the carbon neutralization, and they aim to reduce total annual greenhouse gas emission by at least 50% by 2050 compared to 2008. Yeah. And besides the IMO, so since IMO has set the goal to achieve the carbon neutralization, there comes an idea on the green shipping. So green shipping actually basically it means the idea of more shipping in a more environmental way. And when we're talking about green shipping, a new idea came out, which is the green energy. So people starting to think to use newer, greener energy to replace the existing fossil fuels. And here are some short to mid-term goals from the shipping industry. So some of the industry, for example, even in Hong Kong, they're targeting to using the natural gas. So Hong Kong has been setting up a LNG, the liquefied natural gas station to achieve this goal. So according to the calculation, hopefully the maximum reduction of the greenhouse gas emission will be reduced by 80% by using this natural gas solution. And there are also other ideas, for example, electricity or hybrid system to reduce the greenhouse gas emission and noise pollution at the port. And the electricity is not very popular in Asia. Or Hong Kong maybe have some small electricity station, but in some countries in EU, this is actually a more popular solution. And besides the shorter term, they also have some longer term solution, like wind power and biofuel. And one new idea is that what they call a green hydrogen. So what is green hydrogen? Basically, it's using renewable energy like wind power, solar power to electrolyze the water and then to generate hydrogen. And hydrogen can be used in all kinds of stuff like at fuels like in shipping and aviation, and also can be used as raw materials in manufacturing. So actually, this concept is still under research, and hopefully it can help us to further reduce our carbon emission. And the ultimate goal is actually to make a zero carbon emission vessel in a long time, which incorporate multi technologies like power cell, solar powers, and all the technology mentions. But it will take up like maybe decades to achieve this. And of course, there are also other methods apart from the new energy. We can always research on or updating the regulation on how the shipping routes or to set vessel speed regulation region or area to reduce the impact of the shipping to the environment and to the wildlife there. And apart from the industry, governments take also a very important roles in this achieving to the goal to achieve the zero carbon emission. Like, because without the supporting from governments, I don't think the industry alone can make this kind of resolution. So actually, we will rely on them to make all kinds of visible solution, regulation, legislation, funding, etc. And for individual, although like our individual power may not be able can affect the whole industry, but we can also actually affect the industry by when we are purchasing the product. We can always purchase greener product, and when the manufacturer realize actually customer prefer greener product, they will start to find greener solution. So actually, every one of us can have the power to change our future to achieve a zero carbon emission future. And that's all from my presentation. Thank you.